Okay, in this video we're going to look at how you do division without using a calculator. So when it comes to your GCSE exams, there is one paper that is non-calculator, and at some point on that paper it's very likely that you'll have to do some division where it's all a written down method. So you might not be able to work it out in your head, and that's what we're going to look at now. So this method is called the bus stop method, and that's because it looks like a bus stop. So if I was going to do 936 divided by 3, I would put 936 underneath the bus stop like that, and the 3 to the left of it like so. So the number that you're dividing by goes on the outside, and the number that you are dividing goes inside the bus stop. So in order to be able to do this properly, you are going to be quite confident with your times tables. So if you're someone that isn't very good at your times tables, I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to learn them off by heart. So we're going to start looking at some examples. So this first question here, we're doing 3,115 divided by 5. So setting this up, we do 3,115 underneath the bus stop, and 5 goes outside. Now, what you need to think is we're going to go through each of these numbers one by one, starting from the 3. So what you need to think to yourself is, how many times does 5 go into 3? Now, we know that 5 doesn't go into 3 because that's too big. So we're going to put a 0 above. This is where you put your answer, and under here is where you put your remainders. So it goes in 0 times, remainder 3. So because we've done with that 3, I'm going to cross it off, and I'm going to put a little 3 next to the 1. So then you've got to think, right, how many times does 5 go into, don't forget that's a 3, 31. So you merge the remainder and the next number. So how many times does 5 go into 31? Now, knowing your 5 times tables, we know that 5 goes into 30 6 times, remainder 1, because there's 1 left over to go from 30 to 31. So again, I've used this, I cross it out, and I put my remainder next to the next number. Then you think, right, how many times does 5 go into 11? Because you've got a 1 and a 1, so 11. And we know that 5 goes into 11 twice, because 5 times 2 is 10. So we put the twice up here, the 2 there, and then think about what the remainder is. So 5 goes into 11 twice with 1 left over. So again, cross that off because we've used it, and put the 1 here. Lastly, we need to think, right, how many times does 5 go into 15? And it goes in 3 times, and it goes into that exactly. So as soon as it goes into it exactly, we know that there's no remainder and there's no numbers left here, so we're now finished. So our final answer is 623. As you can see here, it was a bit squashed. So make sure you give yourself enough room, and so that you can see what you're doing. Right, the next one, we're doing 21,944 divided by 8. Okay, so we start on the left-hand side. How many times does 8 go into 2? It doesn't go in at all. It goes in 0 times with 2 left over. So we put the 2 next to the 1 and cross out that 2. Then you think, right, how many times does 8 go into 21? It goes in 2 times, because 2 times 8 is 16. And there's 5 left over. Cross that out. How many times does 8 go into 59? It goes in 7 times, because 8 times 7 is 56. And there's 3 left over, because 56 add 3 is 59. So put 3 here, that's the remainder, cross this out. How many times does 8 go into 34? We know that 8 times 4 is 32. So 4 times, and we've got 2 left over, cross out what you've used before. And lastly, how many times does 8 go into 24? It goes in exactly 3 times. There's no numbers left, so we know that this is our final answer, 2,743. And the last example then, 7,032 divided by 12. Now, I'm showing you this example because we can sometimes have 2-digit numbers here, and they expect you to know how to do that. So you need to know your 12 times tables as well. So starting off on the left, how many times does 12 go into 7? It goes in 0 times because 12 is too big, with 12 left over, cross out. How many times does 12 go into 120? Because don't forget you put these together. Now 12 goes into 120 10 times, because 10 times 120 is that. Then we've got 0 remainder. How many times does 12 go into 3? It doesn't go in. And then we say, okay, how many times does 12 go into 122? And it goes in 10 times. And then what we do next, I'll show you further down, okay? This is just showing you that the 12, you could be asked to divide something by 12. So we're going to leave that one there, and I'll show you what happens when we get to a point where we've run out of numbers in another example further down. Okay. Right, have a go at these questions on your own and pause the video, come back, see if you got them correct. Okie dokie. So first question we're going to go through is 2,178 divided by 3. 3 goes into 2 0 times, and we put the 3 here. 2 remainder, not 3, because there's 2 left over. 3 goes into 21 7 times, 0 remainder. 3 goes into 7 twice with a remainder of 1, because 2 times 3 is 6. And then 3 goes into 18 6 times, so you get 726. Okay, the next one, 44,317 divided by 7. 7 doesn't go into 4, and it's got 4 left over. 7 goes into 44 6 times, 2 left over. 7 goes into 23 3 times, because 3 times 7 is 21, with 2 left over. 7 goes into 21 3 times with 0 remainder, and 7 goes into 7 once. So you get 6,331. Okay, last example then with 11. So doing 6,479 divided by 11. Okay, so 11 doesn't go into 6, so we put a 0 at the top, and it's got 6 remainder. 11 goes into 64 5 times, because 11 times 5 is 55, with 9 left over. 11 goes into 97 8 times, because 11 times 8 is 88, and we've got 9 left over again. And 11 goes into 99 9 times, so you get 589. Okay, so now we're going to look at what happens when you end up running out of numbers. So it's a very similar method, but we end up going into decimal places. So you can see what I'm talking about now. So we're doing 2,254 divided by 4. So same thing, 4 doesn't go into 2, and we've got 2 left over. 4 goes into 22 5 times, because 5 times 4 is 20, 2 left over. 4 goes into 25 6 times, because 6 times 4 is 24, so we've got 1 left over. And 4 goes into 14 3 times, and this is what I mean by we've run out of numbers. So 4 times 3 is 12, so there's 2 left over remainder here, okay? So I put a 2 here. And what happens then is I have to put a dot there and a 0. So a dot and a 0. Then you think, right, 4 goes into 20 5 times. No remainder. So we're now finished. So you get 563.5. Okay, another example for you to look at. 3,706 divided by 8. So 8 doesn't go into 3, and you've got 3 left over. 8 goes into 37 4 times, because that times that is 32. So we've got 5 left over. 8 goes into 50 6 times, because 6 times 8 is 48. 2 left over from 50. And 8 goes into 26 3 times. And 3 times 8 is 24, so we've got 2 left over. Decimal point and a 0. 8 goes into 20 4 times. Not 4 times, twice. Because 8 times 2 is 16, and we've got 4 left over. Now this time, because we've already got a decimal point, we don't put another one, but we do add another 0. And then 8 goes into 40 5 times with no remainder. So we're now finished. 463.25. And the last one then, 4,884 divided by 15. So 15 doesn't go into 4. And so we've got 4 left over. 15 goes into 48 3 times, because 3 times 15 is 45. So we've got 3 remainder. 15 goes into 38 twice, because 2 times 15 is 30. And we've got a remainder of 8. Okay, 15 goes into 84 5 times, because 15 times 5 is 75. And we've got 9 left over. we've run out of numbers, so I put a 0 here and a decimal point here, and then 15 goes into 90 6 times without any remainder. So our final answer is 325.6. Okay, have a go at these your turn questions. Each of your answers should come up with a decimal place. Pause video, have a go and come back to see how you did. So this first question here, 1,977 divided by 6. 6 doesn't go into 1. You've got a remainder of 1. 6 goes into 19 3 times, remainder 1. 6 goes into 17 twice, remainder 5. 6 goes into 57 9 times, remainder 3. Run out of numbers, put a 0, put a decimal point. 6 goes into 30 5 times, no remainder, so we're finished. 329.5. Next one, 44,736 divided by 5. 5 doesn't go into 4, remainder of 4. 5 goes into 44 8 times, remainder 4. 5 goes into 47 9 times, remainder 2. 5 goes into 23 4 times, remainder 4. 5 goes into 46 9 times, remainder 1. We've run out of numbers, 0, decimal point. 5 goes into 10 twice, no remainder, and so we're finished. 8,949.2. And then our final question then, 651 divided by 12. 12 doesn't go into 6, and we've got a remainder 6. 12 goes into 65 5 times, remainder 5. 12 goes into 51 4 times, remainder 3. Run out of numbers, add a 0, put a decimal point. 12 goes into 30 twice, remainder 6. Run out of numbers, we add a 0, but we don't add another decimal point, we've already got one. And 12 goes into 60 5 times, no remainder, so our final answer is 54.25. Okay, so make sure you've got all those down and corrected, and move on to the exit card.